Welcome, one and all, to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 218. I'm the Indigenous Owl.
I'm the Angry Raccoon.
Bringing you the last podcast of May 2023.
Yes, and what a crazy month it's been. I think I can certainly speak for myself. I don't know about you, Al.
Nah, it hasn't been too crazy for me.
Well, you're lucky to some extent, but as you can hear, I'm joined by Al. The last podcast you were on was podcast 210.
It's been that long. Oh, gosh.
Yes, it's been a while. I mean, in podcasts, it's only been 8.
Yeah, but just for weeks-wise.
Year-wise, almost half a year. But but anyway, how have you been over the last months or so?
Yeah, I've been okay. Traveling back and forth with work. I haven't really been gaming too much, but there was a game that I was playing, but I stopped playing for a while, took a break. But I did manage to. Well, actually, my boyfriend got me a copy of a game called Death by Degrees. So it's a actual spin-off game of Nina from Tekken.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So they made a spin-off game of her. I think it was just after Tekken 4. So he got me a copy of that from CEX actually for £12. But when you actually look up online, it's so expensive. It's like probably £70 to get the game.
Deal. Man.
Yeah. So I was really surprised, and he's like, "Yeah, I got you something." And I was like, "Okay, what is it?" And then I saw the game, I was like, "Oh wow, okay." I didn't really have much high expectations for it, but then when I actually played the game, I was like, "Okay, no, I'm actually enjoying it. I'm really, it plays. It's a beat 'em up, but it plays kind of like the camera angles. It feels like a Resident Evil game. It's got like a lot of fixed camera angles. I'm like, oh wow, this really doesn't feel like. Yeah.
Does it play like some of the beat 'em up sections or the story modes in previous Tekkens?
No, it doesn't actually, which is weird. Yeah, because you've got like Tekken Force, which is a beat 'em up, but it doesn't play like that at all. Because literally, when you'd think, you press like square to punch, but no, it's like you have to press use the analog to actually punch and kick, which is really that's the only thing I don't like about it.
Yeah, why would they change that?
It's really weird. So when I played it, I was like, why is it the analog stick to punch and kick? But okay, all right.
So did someone else within Namco Bandai make that? Do you know? Or?
I'm not too sure about that. But
okay.
It's a fun game. Definitely, I've definitely enjoyed that. I'm trying to think what other things I've done. Films wise, obviously, we went to go see Super Mario.
Yes.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed it. It was a good film.
Yes.
But my experience is kind of ruined a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. Go back a couple podcasts to the introduction. You'll know why our experience was ruined. I think you definitely got things were in your way. Let's just say.
Yeah. Obstructions. What can I say?
Obstructions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that kind of ruined my experience. But then I think the other film I went to go see was Polite Society. Which is pretty much, I'll give you the short premise. So it's pretty much about an Asian family. So it's 2 sisters, and one of them wants to be like a stunt woman, and the older sister, she went to an art college, but she dropped out. So she's kind of like not too sure what she wants to do in life. And her parents are kind of like, okay, you need to do something with your life, like be a doctor or a lawyer. So we want you to, get engaged and find somebody. So long story short, they find her a husband, or find her a match, and basically the younger sister's like, no, I want my older sister to follow her dream and become an artist. But the parents are just like, no, like it's a dream, like no, she's not gonna get anywhere with it. So no, she's gonna follow, she's gonna get married and stuff and become a doctor. And they meet the husband, the guy, and then the sister and the guy hit it off and stuff, and they're getting on with each other. And then actually, slowly through the film, it's weird because you think, it's going to be a cliche film. It's going to be about, the older sister gets married and then the younger sister's trying to ruin them and stuff like that. She's getting jealous. But there's actually a really dark twist in the film, which I was just a bit surprised about.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I remember seeing this trailer, but I didn't talk about the podcast. It's like the younger sister's like a much younger, isn't she?
Yeah, she's in secondary school and
Yeah, like evil plots and that.
Yeah, and you're thinking, she's trying to ruin her sister. But actually, when you watch the film, you're like, there's like a really, really dark twist. I feel like they got inspiration from a film. The thing is, if I say the film, I feel like it will spoil it.
Yeah, don't then.
So I won't say the film, but I'll say it's not obviously to the extent of the film, but it's like, okay, wow, okay, I was not expecting that at all.
Worth a watch then?
Worth a watch, definitely. Underrated, but yeah, Polite Society. And I think I like the fact that they set it in parts. So it was like part 1 and then they had like 5 parts in it, and they had like a lot of Western music playing in it, so it had like a little Western feel to it, which was quite cool. I liked it. It was different, very different.
All right, fair enough. Okay, I actually did something which I kind of said I was going to do on previous podcasts, and I actually watched both seasons of Star Wars Visions, seasons 1 and 2, because I talked about the second season a couple podcasts back, and coming off all 18 episodes, it's actually pretty interesting. I would say the basic premise of it is that it's kind of like different people, mainly studios, telling their own like stories in the Star Wars universe, and you have like some pretty big names like Trigger Studios, IG Productions, Aardman, who does Wallace and Gromit, who else, Cartoon Saloon, who did Wolfwalkers, Secret of Keels, as well as some other animation studios I'm not really aware of or wasn't too don't know too much about. And the first season, I will kind of like summarize, is a very interesting season because it really does try and kind of portray like different characters kind of being like becoming Jedis, having the Force, even to the point where Science Saru, who did Devilman Crybaby, Lure for the Wall, they did 2 episodes in this, and one episode follows a actual robot who actually becomes a Jedi or wants to become a Jedi, which is pretty cool because it's a very Astro Boy feeling and looking to some extent. And I really liked the variation in them trying to tell these different kind of stories between people kind of having connections with the Force and the Jedi and all that kind of stuff in it. The timeline all over the place. So I definitely enjoyed season 1. Season 2 is interesting, and I'm not going to go into too many details because it is very new. It literally came out like May 4th, of course. But it has some pretty interesting, not really a twist, but it takes a different direction in that it focuses a little bit more on how the Sith and the dark side work, which I really like that different change. Not every episode does that, but a few episodes in particular really kind of shows the inner workings of how they kind of rise to power, or how they gain power, and how they kind of get people to join the dark side in some very interesting and very heartbreaking ways. Particularly with Cartoon Saloon's episode, which, you know, made me want to leave the house and stand in the rain. But there are some really great episodes. I do like how some of the episodes don't even feature a lightsaber, which was great. One of the last episodes, which I think is called Ayu's Song, which is about like these alien creatures. I don't know what they are, like a rabbit or something like that. And she basically kind of has a connection to I don't really care about the Star Wars lore. She has a connection to the crystals that makes the lightsabers, which I think was a really interesting thing to kind of have like a little girl just be able to sing to them and kind of like revert them to be on the good side, which I thought was interesting. And that whole special, which I think was done by Triggerfish, the studio, it's like in stop motion where like they're all like felt cute stitched animals, which I thought was really nice. But the only thing that bothered me with season 2 is that it unfortunately feels like, and I'm not going to spoil too much, it feels like Disney kind of went, hey, you need to have these things in the special, like very checklisty, where there's too many similarities to the point where almost every story or the base story kind of feels the same. I won't go into a lot of details, obviously, but for example, all 9 episodes features a female character. Okay. Compared to season 1, where it was varied, where it was males, females, and of course robots and other alien species. I know why they've done that, because Disney has like this weird situation where they want to keep, let's say, presenting the message or whatever you want to call it. But that really took away from the series, because it got to the point where it was like, oh, another female character, and X happens. Oh, yep, of course, B happens, and yep, ends that way. All right, sure, okay, it's just like the last one and the one before that. Hence why when you get a story that isn't like that, it becomes the greatest thing ever. Or in certain cases, it kind of feels like almost every episode is copying the the first one that, let's say, did it, for example. But I would recommend it if you want to see something fresh and new with Star Wars, or just some interesting stories, or you like some of the studios that made it. For example, Studio Trigger, the episode The Twins is very much Kill la Kill, for example, to some extent, like literally trying to condense Kill la Kill into Star Wars in about like 10 minutes. You know?
Oh, wow, okay.
So, you know, if anything, pick your poison, pick who you like, pick what you want to see. Not all of them are great, but I'd recommend it for the most part. Let's move on to trailers, and we've got 6 to go through. But weirdly enough, as I said to Al before doing the podcast, they're all super short, and there isn't a lot to talk about. No. But there is, at the same time, yes, no, kind of.
Yeah.
So we've got the first trailer, which is going to be the film everyone has been looking forward to.
Especially me.
Especially you. I know, Al, you're a massive fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot get Al to stop talking about it. She's always going on about her fan theories and the lore and how she would direct the Five Nights at Freddy's film and all that. But it's finally here. And looking at the trailer, it's more like Five Nights at Gerald's to some extent. But I never thought we'd see the day when this film released, because this film has kind of been in development hell. A lot of people don't really know.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's not that well known, but this film technically already came out in the form of the Banana Splits film back in 2019, which took the Hanna-Barbera live-action variety show with the characters back from the 60s and basically made them robots and they killed people. Because Warner Brothers originally had the rights to the Five Nights at Freddy's film, and then they lost it, and then this film released a year later after losing the rights. And I suspect as well with this film, because Blumhouse is producing it, who does very cheaply made horror films.
Oh, okay.
I suspect that they've rushed this film out because of the Super Mario Brothers film's success. Because video game films do well.
That's a good point.
They don't all do well, which is something they don't know. I honestly think this film was about 5 years too late. Like, the series is nearly 9 years old. It turns 9 this year. And it doesn't have the same kind of pull as it used to. I mean, most people know what the game is. Your security guard, you see the monsters, they come get you, or the animatronics, whatever. You know, even the series itself has moved past this initial concept of just, I'm the security guard. Uh-oh, here comes Foxy coming to quickly shut the door. With the other game they had being Security Breach, where you're running around as a child in this mega mall complex, running away from the animatronics and solving puzzles, and much in a Gundam-like aspect, you get into like one of the animatronics and you kind of control him, which is pretty cool. They knew what they were doing, because like the opening of that game references like an anime, so they knew they knew exactly what they're doing with that. They've got some anime nerds on the team that made that game, and realistically, this should have been like a TV special or an online short. And
it does look like that.
Security Breach should have been the TV series, like a 1-season TV series where you follow this kid and he's like, oh my god, I gotta survive and the animatronic's gonna get me and all that. That's what they should have done, because Security Breach, in my opinion, is the better game, story, film. And obviously there's issues with the creator, which we're not going to get into because it's all, you know, let's not bring the podcast down just yet. Also, like, who is this film for? Because the target audience would be fans of the franchise, right? And that would be children who were children back in 2014 who are now adults. But they're not taking into account the fact that actual children today still love this franchise, who technically shouldn't be able to see this film because it's a horror film. So Blumhouse is at a loss because this film should be an 18-rated film or a 15-rated film, so its core audience can't see it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And if it's a PG film, then it's clearly not going to be scary or violent or anything, which is not going to make anyone want to go and see it. The only way this film is going to make money is if it was shot very cheaply, which it probably was for the most part. And I think they're taking themselves way too seriously with this trailer. Like
yeah, it looks bad.
The Five Nights at Freddy's concept is dumb. Let's just get that out of the way. It's dumb. It's silly. Anyone who says it's not is dumb.
No, what are you talking about? It's not silly.
I know. Okay, I've triggered Al. They need to have more fun with it. It needs to be silly and goofy. Like, they really need to push that 80s aesthetic, because it's the only thing that's going to help this film stand out in the most part. Is, it's a, Chuck E. Cheese, like, horror film, that kind of stuff. And, like, it's the only thing that kind of stands out apart from all the other, like, the well-aged, like, advert for the place in the beginning, which looked all right. Because it's just going to become another, like, standard horror film, like, with a dumb-looking, like, killer in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I give them props, like, the prop design, costume department, fantastic job. The animatronics look great. They look like actual people in costumes, which is kind of the point. The backgrounds have been faithfully recreated. The practical outfits, once again, look great. Like, you could argue that I've seen better cosplays, but yeah, they look appropriately bad. Like, they look withered and terrible and that kind of stuff, and they kind of nailed a lot of aspects. And I mean, they're using practical effects. You can see, like, clear puppetry. Like, I went back and watched one of the scenes when Foxy, his, like, skeletal metal leg kind of stomps on the ground. You can see, like, imperfect human shaking of obviously someone just putting the prop down to create that scene, and I'm like, I think that's kind of charming to some extent, and it kind of puts a smile on my face. But it's going to be one of those films that's only really praised for recreating certain scenes from the original game, like the CCTV shot of like the animatronics sitting there, and that really creepy shot of like Foxy peering out of the curtains, which is like the worst thing I've ever seen. They made Freddy too much of a hulking serial killer. That's not the point of that character. He's not Jason Voorhees. You can't have an adult and an adult main character. It needs to be one, because it's just like, who are you supposed to be rooting for? I don't want to see no stupid kid running around doing all kinds of dumb things. And the shot of the guy when he's sitting in the chair and the blades are coming to his face just reminded me of Saw. Yeah. Like, I know what that's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like the mask of the actual animatronics being put in your face and it kills you, but it just looks like they don't actually have buzzsaws in their fucking faces. And I guess my biggest problem, and the biggest problem everyone has with this trailer, is why their eyes are red. Their eyes are not red in the game. And I guess they've done this because they're evil and they need to tell the audience that they're evil.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you see Freddy pick up a guy 6 feet in the air and snap his neck, if he had normal eyes, people wouldn't know that Freddy's evil.
Evil, yeah. Actually,
so
yeah,
with the red eyes, we know he's evil.
Yeah.
They've missed a big point here, because part of the whole reason why they had those cartoony and like soulless black eyes was to look soulless despite being able to move at certain points.
Exactly. Yeah.
By giving them red eyes, it's just like, they are evil.
Yeah.
Look out.
Yeah, basically, you just gotta give it a hint. Yeah, here you go.
You know, there's no mystery there. It's because I guarantee you they'll have the normal eyes, and then there'll be a shot where the eyes turn red.
Red, yeah.
And then you're like, oh no.
Oh God.
Jimmy, look out. Al, any thoughts on this trailer? I know you've already kind of mentioned a few things.
You know what? I was when I watched it, it kind of reminded me of a trailer we spoke about on the podcast. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. It was a film where it was a guy who went,
Willy's Wonderland.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. It reminded me, I was thinking, Willy's Wonderland looks so much better than this. That's for sure.
Yeah, because I will at least give that film credit. It was a bit more original to some extent in terms of the character designs. Like, the weird ostrich thing was awful and stuff like that. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm not particularly interested in this film. I'm not going to watch it. And I feel like it's going to be one of those films that when October does roll by, people are going to go, oh, that came out? Okay. I think that's his ultimate fate. Next trailer we have, we're going to shift 2 games for a little bit, and we're going to talk about #Blood. Although technically, because we're in the England, we should really say Blad. But so this is essentially the open world vampire game Redfall couldn't deliver, which says a lot about the industry right now when an independent developer can produce a better experience than a AAA studio backed by Microsoft. Because I don't think there's any real argument that this game looks better than Redfall does. But they really nailed this Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic with like the character, and she's like superhero is going to fight vampires in school, and you know, it looks like a game with like this really cool like kind of top down ish perspective, which I think was really cool. And I love Becky's design. She's like that one like odd child in school, just comes in like wearing a pink superhero's outfit. We all know that child. We all know that child that just does their own thing, and like God bless those children, because they're going to be the ones to make really creative stories and concepts and all that kind of stuff. She really stands out because she's like the only pink thing on the screen, which is great.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
So like, and the animations are so smooth as well. Like they're comedically like expressive, like with the enlarged limbs as she like, you know, she like kicks someone and you see that she's wearing like heels or boots.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, if you look, when she does the kick move, she's got like heeled boots on, but obviously when she's walking around in game, it's just like the normal squared off like feet or whatever. I don't know what you call it, like feety pajamas or a onesie or something like that. I think they've honestly taken a little bit of inspiration from Battletoads.
Oh, okay.
Because remember when they did their moves, like whenever they would like kick, their foot turned into a boot, like a comically large boot. I think that's what they've taken inspiration from. And I do love how interactive this game is going to be with you like having to find your friends and obviously being on social media and stuff. And even the narration in this trailer where the guy was just like talking about, oh, this is Becky and she goes to high school and all that. And oh no, vampires. But luckily she comes from a lineage of like vampire killers or something like that, just randomly, and I think she uses like a hockey stick as her main weapon, which is fine. Not an issue. I really don't have any problems with this game. It looks fantastic so far. I can't wait to play it, honestly. Al, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it kind of gave me like Scott Pilgrim vibes.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it really did actually. I thought, yeah, this game's gonna be good.
Yeah.
I feel like indie games are, or it's not really classed as an indie game, would it be?
It technically is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because of the contrast between there still being a AAA,
Yeah.
there isn't really a middle market anymore. So it's literally just independent, one guy, small team made it versus a studio of 200 people made it. Redfall.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like indie games are doing way better than actually mainstream games now.
yes, unfortunately true.
Yeah.
Big time. Let's stick with games. I don't know, Al, you have the next trailer.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about one of your favourite game franchises.
Oh, yes.
Yes. You've been going on about this, just
Ever
pinging me.
since.
Ever since the trailer
You
dropped.
just can't shut me up about this.
Yeah.
It's only been out for a couple of days,
Yeah,
but I've messaged everyone about it.
Yeah, he just hypes up everything. So, Mortal Kombat 1. 12. So, so I had a watch of the trailer. So, it obviously takes place after Mortal Kombat 11. So, pretty much it is... The first shot is basically of Kung Lao, and he's pretty much just... I guess... Well, he's in a serene place, and then... It kind of just shows all the characters. So, it has, like, Kung Lao, and then it has, like, Liu Kang being the... I know this is kind of... I have to kind of spoil it a little bit, because...
It's fine.
Yeah. Basically, in the end of Mortal Kombat 11, obviously, Raiden gave his godhood to Liu Kang. So now Liu Kang is like pretty much the new protector of the Earth realm now. So he's basically like he's gonna be training basically Kung Lao to be like the next person, the next chosen one, should I say? And it kind of starts going through all the characters. So it started showing like Kitana and like the narrator saying, rivalry, and Kitana and Melina are in the carriage.
I wouldn't call their relationship a rivalry.
Exactly. I'm just like, you've got rivalry, and I'm like, okay. And then like literally you see like Melina's mask like slip off and show her
beautiful face. Yes.
Her beautiful face, and she's like pushing it up like
Yeah, because Kitana doesn't know she looks like that.
Yeah, apparently she doesn't know. And I'm just like, okay. And then, like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, the character designs just looking a bit too bland for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the reason they did that was because I think they wanted to fake you out and make you not think they're Sub-Zero and Scorpion to some extent.
It's just like, oh god. But, I'm really not looking... None of the character designs look great. They're all bland, in my opinion. I feel like MKX had better character designs.
Oh yeah, interesting, with like Cassie Cage's like combat well, all the children that had like the combat outfit and stuff like that, which I thought was a little bit more sleeker and made sense as a uniform. If you're gonna go fight monsters, you'd look like that.
Yeah. I was gonna say like, do we really need to start again from the beginning for the third time? Like honestly, another timeline again. Oh,
Yeah, that brings me on to some of my points.
Yeah.
Because I'm not I vaguely know what the fuck's going on in Mortal Kombat. But for the series' 30th anniversary, this is a pretty disappointing reveal, in my opinion. I'm even that big of a fan. Like, you're technically wrong. This is, like, the 5th time they've told this story. Because you have to... Of course, there was the first game back in 1992.
Yeah.
Then we got the film in 1995. Then we had Mortal Kombat 9 and Mortal Kombat Legacy, which was a YouTube series which retold the stories and kind of was an origin piece in 2011. Then we had another film in 2021, which they're doing another sequel to as well. And now we have this reboot retelling the story. Like, stop telling this story again. We're done with it now.
Yeah.
It's like Peter Parker's origin. We don't need to know what happened to Uncle Ben and all that. It's done.
Yeah.
Like, people can just YouTube that for the most part. And I was annoyed because how about a spin-off that takes place in between 3 and 4? Or what about Mortal Kombat 0? A prequel where it tells the origin story of Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, and Goro. Because those guys fucking never get explained.
Yeah, that's actually true. Or they could have done like, because there was a Mortal Kombat comic before Mortal Kombat X, they could have done a game on that.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's gaps in between. Because what is it? Kotal Kahn?
Kotal Kahn, yeah.
Yeah, he just shows up.
Yeah.
And his origins in the comics.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, he just somehow became the ruler? No, I really like that guy because he's like what? He's fucking Ogre from Tekken's like little brother or whatever. So it's like let's explain this dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, they clearly ripped off Ogre.
I can't even argue that.
And I think
he was badass in the comics as well. Apparently,
Yeah.
they really downplayed him in the games.
yeah, because he got beat up, which was annoying.
Yeah.
They really trying to hit you with the feels in this trailer as well, which, I mean, the animation in the trailer was nice, but like it's oddly emotional for something that is ultimately like bloody carnage and good. And like the big question I think we need to ask now is, you know, are they going to change anything, and do we want them to change anything with this retelling of the story once again?
Yeah.
Because, you know, in the modern day era and that, there's certain things, and, you know, Twitter doesn't like certain things happening to certain people. So I do wonder if they're going to feel the need to go, well, we can't have that bit happen to that person because Twitter will get upset. And this game is for people who don't play games. Remember that. Says the marketing and all the investors and all that. Also, this is Mortal Kombat 1, right?
Yeah.
Why the fuck is Shang Tsung a pre-order bonus? That is very exploitative of people's nostalgia.
And he was the boss of the flipping first game.
Nah, he needs to be playable in the game. It's fine if you want to do a costume or like, his original look from the first game is a pre-order can't even say the word pre-order bonus. Yeah. That's fine. Nah, and here's the thing. I know people are gonna say, oh, but they've done it with every game. Goro was a pre-order bonus, and yeah, and all this old modern gaming. No, you need to stop that shit right now because it's annoying. Because that's bad. You're literally cutting content. It's different if it was a brand new character. It's different if you were offering more. Nah, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm sick of people doing that. They've done that for like, 4 games in a row now. And even weirder as well is the fucking Homelander from The Boys is going to be in this game. So that's going to throw out the context completely because you got an origin story of Mortal Kombat and then you got a Superman evil rip-off character in this game as well. Obviously, he won't be in the story, but it's going to be a bit odd when you see all these classic characters and then just dude with the cape.
Yeah, it's like, who's this? Oh.
Who's this Randy?
Yeah, it's like what happened in the movie where it was just like, I forgot the main character's name now, but this random guy, that's a kickboxer. He's the main character, and I'm just like, okay.
So annoying. But anyway, we got the next trailer because just literally as I was about to send you the podcast, we have a Sony showcase literally out of nowhere where they basically showed barely anything. And we only got 2 trailers worth talking about, which basically small highlights, more for me than anyone else. So we got Alan Wake 2, we got a release date trailer. It's going to be releasing in October, which is awesome because everyone's been waiting for this game. And yeah, I'm surprised it's coming out so soon. I mean, I'm really hyped for this because Alan Wake is such an underrated game for the most part. It is a bit distracting how similar he looks to John Wick now. I wonder how intentional that was because he's like in a black suit and he's got like, you know, like very thick black hair, bearded hair. Like he didn't look like that in the game. And without spoiling anything, obviously things have happened between both games.
Yeah.
But I think they're intentionally kind of leaning on that aesthetic, that look. I don't know, is that look coming back for guys? I mean, I don't look like that. As we all know, I wear my lab coat and my green hair. So it's like, you know. But I am loving the more heavy, like, horror theming with this game. It's a lot eerier. It's more atmospheric. You know, there's moments of silence. We see the character just walking through this abandoned building. There's just not a single sound compared to the previous game where there was, like, ambient wind and sound. You could always hear something coming. Enemies look a lot more like abstract. They kind of resemble more like pagan forest demons with like horns and antlers, and they don't quite look human. And having the playable character being someone else who's like kind of piecing together the story from the previous game, I think was an interesting choice because fans will obviously be able to pick up on references like, oh, that was from this part and that part, and while at the same time newer audiences will kind of be along with this new character going, oh, what's going on, interesting, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of a cool concept. The environments look beautiful. I think it looks like a really nice, well, yeah, obviously really nice game, but those character models are not the ones right now. I don't think the faces look great, especially the main female character. There's something, her face doesn't look finished. They've clearly put a lot of effort into rendering every single hair on Alan's face, but at the same time, I'm like, let's just hope that they fix that.
What kind of game is Alan Wake? Because I've never heard of it, so...
It's basically a third-person shooter survival horror game.
Oh, okay.
It was originally released on the Xbox 360, and it kind of didn't sell too well, but it was very critically acclaimed. And as time went on, it grew in popularity, and obviously people
okay.
decided, the studio Remedy decided to finally make the sequel because it ends on a very interesting cliffhanger where you're like, oh my god, in some sense. So obviously people have been waiting for, some kind of resolution or continuation. But it's got a really cool concept about, like, it's very Stephen King-esque, where it's about a writer who goes to a town in order to kind of get away from it all, and the town is kind of encompassed by literal darkness. And his kind of only means of kind of like surviving is to literally shine a flashlight on enemies, remove the darkness from them and kill them. But they're all distorted versions of people. Like what they say is like broken English. Like it's clearly a person that existed in the real world, but it's like a corrupted version of them.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting. And there's like a nice kind of... It kind of gets explained very early on where you kind of notice something's really off, where the collectibles in this game is a story that he doesn't remember writing. But as the story goes on, you start to realize that, hey, maybe this story is actually retelling what's actually happening. And that's kind of where the mystery of what's going on kind of happens. So it's a great narrative story. And I'd highly recommend, if you're not interested in playing games, it's a very cinematic story in a good way, where you can just watch and you'll be like, oh, wow. It's like they treat it like a TV show where it does do the next time land.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
It works. Next trailer we have, everyone's been waiting for this trailer as well, Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about time. It's been a long time, as Capcom continues to be the only AAA studio making bank, because they released their financial reports and they are making a shit ton of money. They are doing really well. They're having one of their best years of all time. And given the fact that they're going to be releasing this game this year, yeah, they're probably going to be in the billions by the end 100%. Of the year, because everyone's going to buy this game. What was I going to say? What's great about this game, in a funny way, is the fact that it looks exactly like the first one. It doesn't graphically look different or that much impressive, and I'm not trying to say it's bad. It's just, it's clearly not the prettiest game ever, but that's not the appeal or the selling point. It's the gameplay. The gameplay is fun as hell. The fact that you just slicing up monsters with your crew and you're riding on top of monsters and just killing them, it's great. It's has really simple yet fun, effective boss battles or boss designs. I mean, the Medusa creature looks scary as hell. I mean, it looks like what Medusa should look like, horrifying. And I do wonder how Souls, like, Bloodborne and Dark Souls fans are going to react to this game. Are they just going to call it a rip-off, despite the fact the game came out before a lot of those games? Because, every game that has you fighting with a sword is a Dark Souls rip-off, apparently. But yeah, looking forward to those. The only interesting things that happened with the Sony thing. Last trailer we have is for Nimona? I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, Nimona. This is an interesting one because it already has an interesting history. Because originally, Blue Sky Studios, people made like Ice Age and Robots, was going to make this film.
Oh, that's interesting.
But Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and then it became a Disney film, and Disney kept pushing it back because of its like LGBTQ themings. Okay. Because simply put, Disney is not a fan of people in that group for many reasons, which I could spend a whole podcast listing, unfortunately. The film was eventually cancelled by Disney when they destroyed Blue Sky Studios. They basically closed and liquefied the studio. But Anipura Pictures, I believe that's how you say their name, they acquired the rights, and Netflix is now set to release it next month. Okay. Because it's based on a novel of the same name, or graphic novel of the same name. And given how anti-Disney this film is, I'd love to see it like really do well and stand out, because we're essentially following this main character who's a shapeshifter. She can basically turn into anything, but prefers to look like a human girl, let's just say. And in an industry where media only wants to portray like women as just badass heroes who can do no wrong, which is really boring. Like, we need imperfect characters. We need villainous characters. It's so nice to actually be following a villain character. Like, she just wants to watch the world burn. She doesn't give a shit about anything. And I find that so refreshing, and I respect the fact that a story like this exists and will hopefully be told for a younger audience, as I really want it to have like a nice message about being yourself in this story. Because, there's lots of children who like to stay odd and like to stay original. I want children to be like that. I don't like the whole idea of you got to conform. If you're a girl, you need to be like this. If you're a boy, you need to be like this. I don't like that. That's why so many people get so upset when people of whatever gender decide to cross-dress or want to look a certain way, or, like if boys want to have painted nails, let them have painted nails. If girls want to wear or dress like a boy, let them dress like a boy. you don't really have a right to tell them no at the end of the day. And I kind of hope that this film will, hopefully be like a nice kind of reminder or reference for children to be like that. Animation-wise, I think it looks really nice. It's quite fluid in places. How transforming is quite nice. The only downside I have with this film is I really wish they translated the graphic novel's original art style into a 2D, 3D art style, but similar to, let's say, Spider-Verse, for example.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Because I think it looks nice, don't get me wrong. It's just, I'm not a massive fan of her redesign here. She looks a little too edgy and a little too generic. She doesn't stand out as a character. Like, obviously she stands out because she's literally a pink character in a very bland fantasy world, which I'm glad they have that sort of aura and glow over her. But compared to the original, where she's like just a normal girl and she's got like the dotted eyes, I would have liked to have seen that. I think that would have standed out a little bit more. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's literally next month, so I honestly can't wait to see it. But that's pretty much going to be the trailers for the most part. We do have a discussion because guess what? It's anime.
Yes.
You thought we forgot.
Yes. No, we didn't.
But we have a discussion to talk about, which I think, Al, you're going to introduce. So what is our anime-themed discussion this month, I guess?
Anime soundtracks that slap.
Exactly. One of the most overlooked aspects of, I think, any film or TV show is the soundtrack, is the music.
Yes, absolutely.
Not enough people give the people who work on the soundtrack enough credit.
Yeah.
And we are here to give 3 animes and soundtracks the credit they deserve. And I believe you have 2, I have 1. So would you like to hit us off with the first soundtrack, which I guess you're technically recommending at the end of the day, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So the first soundtrack that I would like to say is a soundtrack from Devilman Crybaby called Sabbath. Yeah, I mean, damn, you just play that and you just start dancing. That's what I can say.
In the mood. I mean, I was shocked by how
it's introduced. I can't.
Well, the song is introduced as well, because obviously your first real introduction to Devilman Crybaby. Well, no, I guess the music is the opening.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like the song is called
Man Human. Yeah.
Which is just like so literal and just hits you on the head with the theme of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be about humans and people and what they do, you know.
Yeah.
And it just has that very catchy, just like intentionally like repetitious beat. And a lot of the sounds in that does have like a danceable repetition. But go on, because I'm speaking over you.
Yeah, that's right. No, it was funny because I remember like when I first watched it, and I was just like, I was taken back at the scene because I was thinking, I didn't think they'd ever animate twerking. I can't lie.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a... Because it does have a Western feel, despite taking place in Japan.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had appropriate music for that scene. And, you know, some of the stuff does. I mean, especially the party scene, which is like in episode 1.
Yeah. They're in the club, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, damn. I was thinking, this cutscene's mad, but I mean, this soundtrack is slapping. I'm just like, yeah.
It is.
But it's funny when you look at the comments here, they're like, if you go to a rave and anyone plays this, you better get the fuck out of that club. Yeah.
Exactly.
You got some random kid like going around stabbing people with this glass bowl.
Too into it, man.
Yeah. And then my second soundtrack that I would say I'd recommend is in JoJo Part 2, Awaken.
Uh-oh.
That is another soundtrack that slaps.
So obviously we're going to talk about Wham's theme.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's all we really need to say is just Wham's theme.
Yeah, it's Wham's theme, yeah.
If you have not heard that song, you need to listen to that song.
Yeah.
Because when Obsidian heard that song, he was on that song, like talking about comments. And I remember he was telling me about one comment where he was like, some guy got really philosophical about Wham's theme and the musical implications about how like the song like presents Wham as this like great powerful character. The escalation of the music shows his transition into his power. And I'm just like, people going way too hard with the Pillar Men and all that kind of stuff. But my God.
Oh God, but yeah, those are my 2 recommendations.
Fair enough. My main recommendation is going to be for the second soundtrack for the anime Space Dandy.
Oh, okay.
And the second soundtrack was titled Booby's Wonderland, of course. Look up the album cover to this, and if you know what that's a reference to, then you're a pretty awesome person. But this... Space Dandy is a fantastic anime. It's very underrated, done by the same creator as Cowboy Bebop. So you should go and watch it.
No, I need to watch it. Actually.
It's fantastic. It's probably one of the deeper animes ever released. It goes places, which is really good. Both comedic and literal, emotional, and that kind of stuff. And the second half of the soundtrack, which I specifically, it was one of the main things I went to Japan to get, which I got, and I got a funny story to tell you about that, but after the podcast. And this soundtrack goes in hard because it's an interesting amalgamation of Japanese artists' take on slightly more what we'd consider Western genres. So we've got funk, soul, disco, dance, but we've got these Japanese artists kind of doing their own adaptation of, because the character Space Dandy is very much like a very Western kind of guy.
Yeah.
In a sense, you know, as a rough example, let's say Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, in some sense. And the first song on this soundtrack starts off with a song by Zella Rock, just simply titled Space Dandy. And this track is the most party song you ever heard. It's the kind of song that is in the background playing, but no one's kind of really listening to it. And you've got like, you know, like the main... I'm not going to start singing like some of the stuff, obviously, but it's got like this really like just like do 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 do, like very much like party like vibe, which is great. And like the lead singer's got like this very like kind of like raspy voice, like like kind of like a DJ kind of like hype man. While you've got like I think kind of like the female singers like in the background going Space Dandy, you know, it's literally like the party song
like,
to start it going off. And the whole album kind of has like kind of varies between genres, like with songs like Hard Cocktail, which kind of has like this smooth like beach kind of like tropical vibe with like guitar licks. Then you've got I'm just kind of looking at the track list as well, because there's so many songs. And I also don't know what all the artists are called because their names are literally in Japanese, and I'm not going to trust the translation. But you've got songs like Dandy Beat, which is an interesting song because it originally, only the beginning of it played at the end of each episode. It was like the next time on Space Dandy, and it was just this simple beat, and that was it. And you were like, okay, you know, that's like a whatever theme, and obviously you'd hear like a drum clash. I'm not too technical on the music. You'd hear like a drum clash, and I was always like, okay. So when its song played on the soundtrack, I was like, oh, you know, that beat, because there are lots of just like 1 minute 50 medleys of just like stuff that was in the video, and I'm like, okay, so it's this song, you know, whatever. But then the song takes a drastic shift where the synthesizers come on and the beat and the guitar licks come on. It turns into the most jazzy, funkiest thing ever, and I'm like, why the hell did they not play this in the anime? It's like the greatest song ever, and you're just like, what the hell? It's such a... I have to play you some of these tracks afterwards, but like other tracks as well. You've got like Burning and Rising, which sounds like a power 80s like power rock ballad, which is like fantastic with like I think it's a female lead singer, just like Burning, Rising, you know, that kind of stuff, which is great. And then you've got what's the other song? You got and the last track I want to talk about is I'm Losing You, which is done by an artist weirdly named BTP Pan Pacific Player. Don't know what's going on with that. It's a very Daft Punk-ish sounding song where the lead vocalist has like so much reverb and synth where he kind of has like a robotic like sound to the point where you can't quite tell what he's saying, but that's kind of the point because it's like a sci-fi alien series, so they're kind of really harking on that like alien android kind of stuff. I'm not sure what exactly the lead singer is singing about, but it's got a great, fantastic kind of like dance vibe to it. Even I don't know why, but it sounds like the lead singer is saying, "I want that doggy style." I'm not sure why. It's very catchy, but I'm just like, I'm not sure what the intention. Unless it's meant to be like sex music or what. It's weird, but yeah, I'll have to play you it because it's ridiculous, but it's such a great track.
Okay.
Don't know why, but yeah, that's my soundtrack. Please go listen to it. It's a part 2. Listen to the first soundtrack and just listen to Space Dandy. It's fantastic.
You know what I actually thought about as well just now?
Yeah.
The panty and stocking
yes.
OST just now.
I'm going to save that for next time because what is it? The second half of the soundtrack of Panty and Stocking is literally titled The Worst Album.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. Which I actually have both of those soundtracks as well on CD. I bought those, funny enough, when I went to Japan the first time. But yeah, that's an interesting album. That is yeah, we can do a whole discussion on that album. Panty and Stocking season 2 when?
Yeah, exactly. When?
They kind of did confirm that, but it's gone quiet again. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, pretty much at the end of the podcast, the end of May, we just have the video of the episode to talk about, which is going to be Tenacious D video games. Are you aware of Tenacious D, Al?
The film, yep.
You aware of the film? The film is something. I love Tenacious D. Obviously, it's Jack Black, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name, but I know I'm forgetting his name. I'm sorry.
That's
Yes, they kind of came through with a new song about video games. Jack Black essentially singing about how he doesn't play video games anymore. It's a 2-minute video animated by, I believe, Only Plays and a couple other people that did a fantastic animation. Obviously, most people now know Jack Black as the voice of Bowser. You know, obviously he was, totes excited to play Bowser in the film. And
sorry, I just thought about that video you
yes,
sent me.
that's exactly what I'm referencing. He played Bowser in the Super Mario Bros. Film. And he's actually done a lot of other voice work in video games. He's the lead character in Brutal Legends and other things. He's also Officer Dick in the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remake 1 and 2. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can vaguely hear him just basically saying, "Get the fuck out of here." Yeah, fantastic music video. I hope there's a new album coming out. I would love to see Tenacious D kind of get different YouTube animators to animate their music videos.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I know, I can't remember his name. I think it's Cass DeVanderpoel. I can't remember his name, but he does the animated recaps of films. I highly look him up. Just type in like recap animated films or whatever and you'll see him. He said, let me know when you want to do the next video, and hopefully he does another animated style. Lots of other people have done animated music videos for them. They have like a nice history between that, and obviously they're slightly more questionable music on other certain other album covers as well. Their stuff, some of their music, I can't wait for Twitter to discover Tenacious D, because they're going to have a mental breakdown. You can't have a song where you talk about, all that kind of stuff, because people on Twitter are so fickle-minded for the most part. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Al, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Make sure you watch JoJo Bizarre Adventure.
Yes, we need to watch that, because it's one of the best.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Exactly.
Simply put, I want to thank everyone for listening to the podcast. I want to thank everyone, I want to thank you, obviously, Al, for being on this episode. Definitely needed the help on it. And subscribe to the podcast if that really helps things out. But isn't really anything else to say. Oh, I guess one thing I'll say really quickly. So next month is, of course, going to be June, and that marks the halfway mark of the year. Which means podcast episode 220 is going to be the best and worst of 2023 so far. So get your stuff watched, get your notes written. We're going to have a nice little discussion, because there's been a lot of good and there's been a lot of bad so far this year. I can only imagine how possibly depressing the end of year podcast could be. Because, things have been all over the place. But maybe we'll see Al on that podcast. Who knows? But we'll just have to wait and see. We've got 2 more podcasts till then. But I guess I will end this podcast, like I always do, by saying I was the Angry Raccoon.
I'm the Indigenous Al.
And we will see you on the next podcast.